Welcome back to Connect the Game. It's episode 2. There's so much to talk about, and we appreciate all that tuned into our first episode and are now back to keep things rolling in episode 2. I'm Tim Crowley. Thank you again so much for being back here. Well, it should be a really fun time in sports this coming week. The Final Four is here this weekend. All number one seeds that should be ready to battle it out with a national championship on the line. But also now a chance to reflect on the first week of the Major League Baseball season. We're going to really dive in to opening weekend. I have some takeaways from that, probably 3 in particular. We also have a great interview coming up. One of the voices of the A's. Doesn't it feel weird to not say the Oakland A's anymore? We kind of just go with the Athletics for now, but it's one of their voices, and Chris Caray. He stops by the show, one of my former broadcast partners, and it was so great to catch up with him. Also going to have some thoughts on the back end of this. We're going to talk baseball pretty much most of the show today. There's some takeaways that I want to lead off with from the opening weekend. But specifically, again, we covered a lot of the Boston Red Sox, and I certainly want to talk about that because the story that everyone's wondering about is what's up with Rafael Devers. All these strikeouts, still without a hit on the season at the time of this recording on the off day. Just something doesn't seem right. There's all the different, chances of, all right, is it he didn't get enough at bats in spring training? Is it, how is he adjusting to this DH situation? Is he in a weird spot because he's not playing third base and Alex Bregman is? There's a scenario that I would like to look back on that I think is going to help put some context to this Devers situation and why, even after all these strikeouts early on and doing so at a historic rate, everyone should take a deep breath for a second. Know that it's a few games into the season. He had 15 plate appearances in spring training, and we'll talk about why some other great Red Sox hitters have figured it out after some shaky starts in the past. But let's dive into the first weekend of Major League Baseball. First of all, how great was it to have it back? Just so many games across the slate, so many great players to watch, and a lot of guys showed up. Number one that I want to talk about, maybe not the biggest star quite yet, maybe he is around here, is Christian Campbell. First game, gets the call up for the Major League debut. Everyone saw the great video with Alex Cora and former Georgia Tech alum Jason Varitek giving him the news that he was going to make the big league roster. He gets the start at second base on opening day in Texas, which was rewarding after writing that for NESN.com last September that this should have been the right move for the Red Sox, and it still is the right move for the Red Sox, knowing that Christian Campbell is a true talent. He's young. The rumors of the extension talks, as reported by MassLive's Chris Caray, have already started in recent days, and maybe the Red Sox will get something done soon. We already saw that with the Garrett Crochet news, and we'll certainly touch on that in a little bit as well. But for Campbell specifically, I know that first game in Texas, which was the only Red Sox win of the season so far at the time of this recording, yes, there were some shaky moments. Yes, he didn't look perfect at second base. Yes, that first at-bat against Nathan Eovaldi kind of jumped and swung out of the way at a curveball that may have almost hit him. And I know that sparked some controversy. Maybe not controversy is the right word, but some fear, some doubts. Obviously, there were some certain Boston media outlets that were a little quick to jump and say, wow, maybe he's not ready yet. But how quickly did Christian Campbell answer the bell later? Keeps that ninth inning rolling, gets his first major league hit later in that game. That sets up the game-winning 3-run home run from Wilyer Abreu. A fantastic moment for him, and just something about Wilyer Abreu in that ballpark. With all these home runs over the last 2 years, obviously with a lot on his mind and emotions in both of those situations. Obviously last year, with the death of his grandmother, he comes out in a very emotional performance. And then just weeks after having twins, hits 2 more home runs in Texas to give the Red Sox the opening day win. But back to Campbell, it only took a few at-bats to really get him in a groove. This isn't some stretch of, okay, it's a rookie, we're midway through April, he's still struggling, what's going on? How quick did he turn the switch? Immediately comes out the next night, 2 hits, hitting the ball all over the yard, gets his first big league home run over the weekend as well. An absolute no-doubter, 431 feet in the left center field at Globe Life Field into the bullpen. This is what people knew that Christian Campbell could do. And I liked the quote from Alex Cora over the weekend that said, that guy, what you saw yesterday, that's who he is. And the Red Sox are going to get to see that throughout the course of the season. They made the right decision with Christian Campbell. This is not just Monday morning quarterbacking because the move worked. Because, again, there were some doubts throughout spring training. The bat wasn't great for most of it. But then around that time of that spring breakout game, he's the first one of all 3 of the big 3 to homer in that game. Obviously, the Roman Anthony one went viral for, the fan chanting overrated at him. And then he hits an absolute bomb to right field. Marcelo Meyer homer in that game as well. But that felt like it was the time that Christian Campbell really started to turn the corner and remind people why he was even in this conversation in the first place. Had a great week of camp after that and is already showing how versatile and how valuable he's going to be. He almost had that incredible diving catch in left field when he got the start there the other night. He's giving Alex Cora everything he could want. with the bat. He's going to have the better glove as time goes on, but it's just a matter of, again, we've talked about this, I've written about this before. The Red Sox have been trying to fill the second base hole for years. This goes back to when Dustin Pedroia first got hurt in 2017, the infamous slide from Manny Machado, and the Red Sox have just kept rotating and rotating and rotating and rotating and rotating some more second basemen all the way through. It's been a revolving door at that position. And again, they've had two big playoff runs since then. They won a World Series by kind of patchworking it together with the rest of the elite talent that was on that team in 2018, getting it done with Brock Holt and Ian Kinsler and occasionally Eduardo Nunez over there. And then in 2021, you have an incredible amount of depth to that lineup. And then you got enough there with Christian Arroyo. I know Kiki Hernandez at started the year there, but then it became a great defensive center fielder. So they've had time to, when they've had some great runs, patch it together. It feels like now that Christian Campbell's here, he's up, he's here to stay. It feels like this could be the start of finally being able to have that second baseman of the future and finally stop that revolving door. It's early, but the early signs on Christian Campbell have been fantastic to watch. And again, it was cool to look back on that and just know from those of us that saw it last year, especially late in the season, and knowing what this 2025 campaign could start like if given the opportunity, it's great to see Christian Campbell doing that. Second big takeaway of opening weekend. How many more people are going to start using torpedo bats? The Yankees obviously put them on display. Guys like Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm, Anthony Volpe, Paul Goldschmidt, all using them to start the season. Aaron Judge is not. I think there is a fine line to walk with this, recognizing that this incredible offensive outburst for the Yankees over the weekend can very well be a combination of two things. Yes, those bats certainly can carry some weight to them and carry that ball a little bit farther in an already hitters-friendly park in Yankee Stadium. But also the fact that just, again, it's not like anybody from the Brewers was incredibly overpowering. They've put together a good staff the last few years. But can this also just be better hitters beating pitching? Can this also be part of that conversation? Again, like this is not a situation where, do you remember Chris Sale talked about this in 2017 or in the years after the 2017 when the Astros cheating scandal was going on? And he's, a pitcher that had just struck out over 300 batters that season, was completely dominant. And he starts getting hit around a little bit in game one of the ALDS against the Astros that year. And it's like, this is something's not right here. Again, is it a new style to look at these bats getting swung? Yes. Is it going to take some time for pitchers to adjust when they're facing hitters in this lineup? Yes. But there's adjustments to be made in every game. I think it's a little blown out of proportion how crazy this has been. I don't know if we're going to see throughout the length of a season, guys have their numbers go crazy high up. I know exit velocity is, and barrel rate's going to probably be the topic of conversation, especially guys with like Anthony Volpe and Jazz Chisholm and maybe some of the veterans in Goldschmidt and Bellinger. And again, first season in New York, interested to see how that goes in general. But now this just adds to the conversation. I don't think it should really take away from what a great weekend it was for the Yankees, that it's really just the bats. It's a good lineup. I've had my doubts about how they're going to run throughout the course of the season and how much pressure eventually is going to be on Judge. But if nothing else, the torpedo bats are cool to watch. And again, they're legal for now. Nobody's stopping them no one's stopping any other team from really getting behind this wave. So the first month of the season, I'm excited to look up around May 1st and see how many people are still using them and how the league has their perception on it as well. But it's been interesting to watch. Torpedo bats are interesting. It almost reminds you, remember, I don't remember if it was Fisher Price or whatever, but there was the orange mini bat, wiffle ball bats you had when you were a kid. I always liked the junk ball ones that had the red label. That was, still in this context evenly proportioned to that bat, but it was that little one that had maybe the handle was the size of this microphone, right? And then the barrel just completely opens up. That's what it feels like watching the Yankees do this. Again, little exaggerated, but it is something different to watch, and it catches your eye saying, whoa, that's a bat I've never seen before. But again, credit to the analytics staff and some of the scientific background that they brought in a couple of years ago to kind of get this trend rolling, and now it's here. And the Yankees, who are going to be fighting some adversity throughout the course of the season, especially on the starting pitching side, already off to a raging start thanks to the torpedo bats and an offense that really got cooking early against the Milwaukee Brewers. Third and final takeaway for now from MLB opening weekend. How is anybody beating the Dodgers this year? Again, good Detroit team that they faced in the opening weekend. Already so many memorable moments. They beat Skubal on opening night. The reigning American League Cy Young winner. A scratch and claw game from the Tigers that the Dodgers pulled through. But just seeing what their stars continue to do. Again, Ohtani's first home run of the year in the States. in the States, that is, because again, obviously that 2 game opening series in Tokyo against the Cubs, the at bat against for Otani to go the other way, work a count, go the other way. Mookie Betts, who's still trying to gain the 23, 25 pounds of weight he lost from that kind of weird situation right before he left for Tokyo, and then losing a bunch of weight back and forth between those long flights to Japan, comes up out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, but 2 home runs, the walk-off 3-run home run to win the game for the Dodgers. And then the starting pitching depth, again, just looking left and right. Again, they can trot Snell out there. Obviously, what they have with Yamamoto, I know Sasaki, we're going to see kind of how he starts to adjust a little bit. He had a bit of an emotional press conference the other night, but there's still a lot of faith in him as well. Tyler Glasnow's out there trying to do his thing and be what he once was with the Tampa Bay Rays when they were facing the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. There's just so much depth. And then you throw Tanner Scott in there. Tanner Scott, in my mind, was one of the biggest X factors of the offseason. Someone that, covering the Boston Red Sox, I thought was going to fit great in that bullpen. Maybe they didn't like the price. Obviously, they allocated money elsewhere in the Bregman signing, and had already signed a couple of left-handed relievers in Aroldis Chapman and Justin Wilson. But you see why Tanner Scott's a weapon already, and he put that on display for the Dodgers in his first few games. It's so hard to see anybody in the National League West trying to compete with this team. And I know there's some firepower in the National League the National League East that I certainly believe in, because when the bats get going for teams like the Braves and the Phillies, and even maybe the Mets behind Juan Soto in October, things can get crazy in the postseason in baseball. That's why you love it. But there's just so much depth, and there's no breaks in the lineup. There's no breaks in the rotation. All their guys in the bullpen have completely electric stuff. The best team in baseball got so much better in the offseason. It's going to be really interesting to see how anybody tries to stop them as this season continues. I want to talk about Rafael Devers and this whole situation for the Red Sox in just a little bit. But for now, again, this show is about interviews and having some fun. People come on, talk about their side of the industry, whether it's in baseball or beyond the sport, around the sports world. Episode 2 consists of an interview with Chris Caray, one of my former broadcast partners from my days with the Catawba Kettleers. Chris, obviously now in his second season with the A's, has had an incredible path to the big leagues. Yes, his family history is such a big part of who he is, but he gets his next chance to start to carve out his path and really make a scene for himself on the broadcast level. Let's throw that interview with Chris now on Connect the Game. Connect the Game continues on episode 2. We have another fantastic guest. He's one of the voices of the Athletics. It's Chris Caray joining the show. Chris, great to see you again, my friend, and great to see what a great start to the season you're about to have, and another year of broadcasting Major League Baseball. How good is that, from the time we met years ago to now see you doing this?
Well, I got to start, Timmy, by saying 4 years you've been gassing me up and telling everybody I'm a good guest. When is the lie going to end? When are you going to start telling the truth? I thought you were a respected journalist now, and now you're here telling everybody I'm a great guest. No, it's great, buddy. It's great to see you. It's great to see everything that you've done, and just such an incredible time right now in the game of baseball. And for me, in my second year in the majors, I'm living in life's sandbox, buddy. Well, what do I have to complain about?
I mean, hey, we got a podcast ahead. We got plenty of stories, so we'll see how that perception changes by the end of this. we'll uh, we'll,
Right.
we'll get chronological, but in a moment. But again, so much fun about to start for you guys. A brand new chapter out in Sacramento. The home opener's coming up. How excited for you? I know this is a very whirlwind for everybody out there. It's a very new chapter for the Athletics. What have you made of this so far, and what's the vibe going to be like in Sacramento when this team starts there?
Well, I moved here about 4 days ago, so just getting an idea of what this city is like, not having any idea what the city was like, other than the fact that it was the capital city of California. Which, you know me, I went to Georgia, so I'm not exactly one of those Northeasterners like you did. I had to look it up on Google about 2 weeks prior to moving here. I'm like, oh, Sacramento's the capital of California. That's wonderful. The fan base is really excited. It's going to be a smaller, more intimate environment, around 14,000 people per night, every single night, packing it in. And I think that's going to lead to wins. Actually, by the time of recording this, I don't know when you're going to release this episode, our home opener is today. So at the date of this recording, that's when our home opener is. So I'll get to see it firsthand tonight, and see these A's take the field against the Chicago Cubs in West Sacramento in Sutter Health Park, which has made continuous upgrades to make it a major league facility and suitable for a major league club. I hosted an event at a sports bar, 150, 200 people packed in this tiny little sports bar, and they were all wearing A's gear. They were so excited. They understand the situation, and they just love the fact that Major League Baseball is coming to Sacramento. So I think they've done such a great job with the Kings. Now, why not Major League Baseball here for an extended period of time? That's what the A's are going to try and accomplish before their eventual road to Vegas.
Should be a fun one ahead. And again, some very fun talents to watch on that team. We're going to talk about the A's in just a little bit. Talk about you. Everyone knows the story, so we'll only briefly touch on it. Obviously, you've been part of one of the most well-known broadcast families in the country for years, and now you kind of got to write that next chapter as a part of it. For you, how do you balance, having the name and wanting to live up to the family and embrace that while also, as you and I have talked about so many times, carving your own path as well?
Well, I mean, I remember when we were on the Cape, and there was a limited understanding until we actually set foot on the Cape of who we were and what our last names were. And then once it happened, there was kind of this like sonic boom, and that was my first taste of what it really kind of meant to people. Obviously, when I was at Georgia and my dad was doing games to the Braves, there was a little bit of an understanding. But once you got into a baseball space with a bunch of scouts and industry professionals and stuff like that, you start to understand how much it really mattered to people and how much it meant to people, positive and negative. There is a balance, right? I will never deny the fact that my last name has helped me get in the door. It's a big part of it. Nepotism is a very common thing in the talent industry. But the operative word of talent industry is talent. And I feel that my skill set and my abilities did a good bit of legwork in getting me here. Yes, I had opportunities that other kids probably didn't have as early, but I still had to walk through the door. And now I still have to hold the door open. And not only hold the door open, but jam in a doorstop and sprint completely through and try to keep breaking barriers and keep doing things for my family because there is, a high standard of excellence in our family in broadcasting. And, I am writing the next chapter. I read at a fourth grade level, so I'm writing it very slowly with less than three syllable words every time, but it's still going. And I couldn't be prouder to don my last name and to be my father's son and Stefan's brother. And obviously the connections to Harry and Skip are great as well. But forging your own path isn't that hard if you're aware of what was set before you. And that is something that I'm very cognizant of, and I take into account every single day and put that headset on.
Obviously, for you guys, there was a lot of sports going on for you and your brother growing up. When did you know that you wanted to have this path in baseball? I know, again, like we talked about, that presence and the history was there, but when for you specifically did you know you wanted to be right in the middle of this?
Earlier than Stefan, I think late high school. Yeah, I was a captain of my soccer team my last 2 years of high school, and I knew my athleticism wasn't going to cut it at a level that was worth the effort of playing collegiate athletics. My brother was a very gifted lacrosse player, and going into my senior year, I had done some stuff, some radio stuff with my brother, and done some interviews. And we are like, okay, well, we're kind of comfortable on the air. Doesn't sound that great, but we have a slight feel for it. So maybe it's time to test it out. And then I started doing public address announcing. And then really, when I put on the headset for the first time, I was 19 years old. So that was 5.5 years ago. And now I find myself in the major leagues. So it's been a really expedited process for me. But once I knew that this is what I wanted to do, it became a very, very big part of my life. So much so, there are a lot of regrets that I have that I didn't go out and experience the other aspects of my life that I needed to in college. But it got me where I am now, and I'm very grateful for that. But I didn't have that, aha, lightning in a bottle moment like a lot of kids do when they listen to Vince Scully, or in your case, Dave O'Brien in Boston, or Milwaukee kids listen to Bob Uecker, or like my dad when he was working with his dad and did some stat work and heard a call and he said, hey, I think I want to do what you want to do. Mine was more natural in the sense that, okay, this is a skill set that my family possesses. This is something that I can break into and something that I think would be fun to do. Now I just got to decide if I can do it. And I'm pretty self-aware. And once I realized, you know what, I can do this at a fairly high level, might as well go for it. And that's what I did. And now I've randomly stumbled upon a major league job with one of the most exciting teams in baseball. So I'm very grateful.
I know there's the NAIA time that we all love tuning into down at Georgia Gwinnett, but I personally like to think this really started for you and your brother when you did come up to Katuitt and join the family in the village with the Kettlers. We all got to do that together. What are some of the moments that stand out to you from that summer? And I know you and I have talked about it so much back then and in years since then. how much of a progression that was for you, both professionally and personally that summer. What did you learn about yourself that year, and what kind of still stands out about that summer on the Cape?
I love how you said personally there because you know the behind the scenes stuff, don't you, Timmy? It was really big for me. I think even more personally than professionally, I think I learned a lot about myself during that summer. I learned how much I loved working with my brother. I learned how much harder I had to work to get where I wanted to go because there was so much talent there. I mean, you think about our Cape class of broadcasters there. You're working for Nessa now. I'm with the A's. Ben Schulman is the radio voice of the Blue Jays. Emmanuel Barberia is doing pre and post for the Yankees. Carlo Jimenez is the radio voice of the Clippers. Stephen Carey's the best out of all of them, and he's a free agent. But still, it was a really really great class of people, really a lot of talent, and for all of us to kind of get where we wanted to go, and the young guys that were around my age continuing to break molds and break barriers and say, you know what, I'm going to be in the major leagues by 24, 25, 26 years old is remarkably impressive. The broadcasting was always going to figure itself out. I loved working for Katuitt. I would never, ever go to another team, ever. My allegiances are strong with two teams and two teams only: the Georgia Bulldogs and Katuitt Kettleers. I won't go to any other teams other than that. Obviously, the A's are working their way up in that list as well. But from a personal standpoint, I think I learned a lot about who I was and what I wanted out of life. And there were some moments where I had to really question my own emotional maturity, things like that. And there was a lot of stuff over the summer that happened that I'm so grateful for. And I'm really grateful for everybody that I met there and every lesson that I learned there because it set the stage for the rest of my professional and personal life.
I always say that I know people, there are times that I get a little too locked in on what I do or, take the job too serious. And I always point
Same.
to you, I just a little, and I always point to you and your brother in showing, how to make baseball fun. Maybe no moment, you know, connects that the best than the end of the regular season that year, and turning back the clock and doing the 1940s inning that you guys did. Um, do people know the impressionist and the multi-talented beyond the broadcaster that Chris Caray is?
Well, I made the podium. I got the bronze medal there behind Stephen Carey and Peter Flaherty, who Peter's writing for Baseball America now, another just superstar. But I just kind of followed their lead. 1940s speaking, hey, and they do the whole transatlantic thing. It was super funny. That did set an impression of what the season was going to look like. Now that we're all adults here, it was either that or we were going to have a couple of drinks before getting on the air and pay homage to Harry. But we had already made the playoffs. Why not? But then we're like, yeah, you know what? We're not established enough to do that yet. So we thought the transatlantic and, Jack Roberts and the rest of the production team did a great job turning everything down and really letting us ride it for an inning. And people enjoyed it. But I think that video that you put together that I don't know if you will link or not, but the blooper reel, that kind of showed what behind the scenes looked like too, when we were singing and dancing and laughing and also screaming at each other for messing up the opens. We held each other accountable. We had a great time, and I feel a great family here with the A's. I really do. But I've never felt more connected to a group from a broadcast standpoint. Maybe it's because we were all the same age and going through similar stuff than I did with my people in Katuitt. And there's still days that I'm like, if they paid me the same amount of money to do Katuitt Kettleers baseball or Major League Baseball, I'd probably still choose Major League Baseball, but it would make it a really tough decision because I really enjoyed my time there. And it really is the best. And I don't care if I'm looked at as a snob or whatever. But if you get the chance to go to the Cape, you got to go.
1,000%. And again, I'm so happy you touched on this when we first started talking about the class of people around us too, and how I think at times everyone should look at the Cape for the next stars in terms of the on-field play, especially from those couple of years that I was down there, but especially that first summer in 2021. You just named so many of them. How much talent there is, how much better I think everyone made each other too, because there was that, that sense of, hey, there's a lot of really talented people here. How do we make each other stand out? And you kind of just touched on it, Katuitt had fun doing it, and I think that's shared on the broadcast more than anywhere else around the Cape.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to take yourself too seriously. I think sometimes There were aspects of the Cape and people on the Cape that were very polished, but they took it more seriously than they should have. And don't get me wrong, I think you should take your job seriously, but it's summer collegiate baseball in one of the most beautiful places in the world, right? You can some days not have your best A game. You might not have your best broadcast, and it might be everybody's favorite because you're just messing around the whole time. I mean, that's what we did. And then, there are times where it was emotional. I remember sobbing my eyes out after we lost to Bourne and sending a message to the fans, all, 17 of them that were watching. And it was very special and important to me to thank them for putting the faith in me and my brother for the first time to be the voice of their team. I had never been the voice of a team before. And that will always be something I'm incredibly indebted to the town of Katuitt for. And I know you were the voice of the team the next year and how important it was to you. So, and what's great about Katuitt is they still consult us on the next generation of voices, the next year, and it's somewhere that sooner rather than later I'm going to have to make an appearance to and show my gratitude at Lowell Park and maybe go to the Coop too. Um, the Cape will never be something that I will forget. My family got to go. My grandparents, it was their last, big trip that they could go on. They still keep in contact with all the people in the village, and um, it was a very, very wonderful experience from top to bottom for us, and something I will never forget ever.
It was so great to have your family up there that summer because I truly believe that that Cary complex in Hyannis gave the Kennedy compound a run for its money down the road. It's certainly one of the memories that we think about, even just like the first few days of doing prep work there and filling up the OneNote on that porch. Again, just learned so much from you and your brother that summer, and it is a family and one that hopefully we get to reconvene soon in the fall, and it should be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
That summer ends. You started looking at your next professional jobs, and I remember thinking when I saw a few months later that spring, I was first excited to see the Fayetteville opening. That a few days later, I said, "Wow, I didn't know that my broadcast partner had so much in touch with Bill Belichick in terms of writing his little resignation on the napkin." And you end up with the Amarillo Sod Poodles. How much of a whirlwind was that few weeks for you? Starting your minor league path and then doing something totally unprecedented when you and Stefan ended up in Texas.
I was looking actively for jobs like anybody was, but I realized that I was graduating in May. The baseball season started at the end of March. So I basically forced my school's hand and said, look, either you let me go or I'm not going to graduate from here because they're going to hire me either way. They've already told me. And Andrew Chapman, an incredibly talented broadcaster with Fayetteville, gave me a chance. And I moved to Fayetteville and was renting a room for $300 a month at a house in Fayetteville. And I stayed there 3 nights. And the first day of work, I dressed up in my little boy suit and ready for my staff photo and all this stuff. And my brother was still in Athens doing school and whatever, and he was writing a paper and reporting a paper on the authenticity of glam metal music through the context of Motley Crue. And he gets this notification, and I get this notification at the same time. And can you bleep anything in this? Do you know how to bleep?
We can.
Okay, I want to use the exact words that I said. That Sam Levitt, the voice of the Amarillo Sod Poodles, was getting a major league job, and we had met Tony 7 months prior at the World Series, and he gave us his card and whatever. So I call him. I say, "Hey, buddy, you better call Tony right now. Get your together." And send him an email. It's like, "Don't worry, I already got it. I already figured it out." And he sent Tony an email. But little did I know, Tony actually emailed him first. And then Tony texts me while I'm at lunch with my new boss, the new lead broadcaster, saying, "Hey, can you get on a Zoom in 20 minutes?" So I have to come up with a fake excuse that I forgot to turn in an assignment and accidentally lock myself in the booth while I'm taking basically an interview. And he offers us on the spot to be leads. And Steph and I are like dumbfounded. We're about to move to Amarillo. So from that point, I literally leave Fayetteville, drive down to Athens. Stefan and I, with a bunch of our friends from Georgia, it was like a Monday or Tuesday night, so nothing was popping. We all go get deep into the night, drinking, having fun, whatever, celebrating. And then he and I go down to St. Augustine to go pack up our entire lives to move to Amarillo like 6 days later. And that is the process by which it happened. And then, a year later, we're in Amarillo for year two. We win the championship. And then it's the off season. And then next thing you know, we're interviewing, and then I'm auditioning for the Oakland A's job. And then I get the job. And it's been that, like, just one step after the other. The progression has gone like this for me. And I can't believe it. Like, sometimes I get emotional thinking about it, because I really don't deserve to be as lucky as I've been in this situation. Most people have to wait years upon years, decades, maybe even, and I didn't. And so I'm acutely aware of that, and acutely appreciative and grateful for the fact that I'm here and getting to live my dream every single day at the ripe old age of 25.
I think it's important to know that too, especially from your perspective, because obviously we talked about how you deal with, the name and living up to that. But I know that just from scrolling Twitter, and I'm sure you saw the same things that I did, that when that job first happened, there were some people who were rather skeptical or not as positive as they could have been, who are also around the industry. How did you battle that, especially knowing that I don't remember many minor league broadcasters getting an opening introductory press conference as if they were the free agent signing on a Juan Soto type deal or
Yeah, yeah.
something.
Yeah, well, that was all Tony. Um, the introductory press conference was something. I think that there were definitely some skeptics that, I think when Tony said we were, quote, the only choice for the job, that set a lot of people off. But they have to understand that wasn't my words. Those were my boss's words. His words were his words. I didn't believe we were the only choice. In fact, in some ways, at that point in time, we weren't the best choice. But we were their choice, and that's really all that matters. And to those skeptics, to those naysayers, if you had looked at me in 3 years ago, I would have been so worried and so much like, I want to please them and all that stuff. Now, I kind of just have to say, look at me now, like, look where I am now. Look what I've done for myself since that point in time. Yes, I've had breaks, but to be in the major leagues as an announcer and to be here for your second year and to be brought back, to be retained, to get more games like I've done, I feel that I've done the work and I have proven that I have the skill set and the ability to work at this level and do it at a high level. And there are a lot of people that are going to discount me and discount my brother and stuff like that because of our last name, and I understand where they come from. But I'm here now. I can't control that I was born by my father. I can't control that my last name is the name that it was. I'm playing the cards that I was dealt. And the cards that I was dealt was a very good hand. And even though that it's a good hand for some aspects of my life, it's also a difficult hand for others because people are going to judge you. People are going to think things about you and they've never met you before. And I have to deal with that. I have to work twice as hard as anybody else to prove that I'm a good guy and that I don't exude this level of ego that I think people sometimes think that I do. I'm just a little bit more confident in my abilities now, but it's taken a really long time to do that. And it's taken me getting to the major leagues to get there. Even though all along the way, friends like you, family members, industry professionals all made me feel like I was worth it. Now I'm starting to believe it because I'm here. And to those people, I hope that one day we can all get a drink and we can air out your grievances and we can be friends. But if not, I'm really comfortable and really happy with the group of people that are in my life that are actively supporting me because I'm going to do it back to them and then some. And that's my life. And those are my people. And I will ride for my people as long as I can.
How big was Amarillo in creating that for you, and just that final knowledge that okay, I'm ready to do this at the big time, and making you a professional down there with Steph.
They made it a major league experience, right? So they said we want a major league experience on a minor league operation, um, or a major league experience on a minor league scale is what they would always say. I mean, from the on-field shows, to radio interviews, to being special guests, to hosting, to doing the auctions, to doing television and radio, they did a really good job propping us up and making us their voice. It's not often in the minor leagues where your general manager is able to sequester $100,000 a year radio deal for 3 years at $100,000 a pop, paying the radio station paying us to do. So we had a little bit of a hand in that, but Tony was just such a great salesman and a great marketer, and it really is the premier destination to go for broadcasters. Like Worcester, is a great place to be as well. So, we've created a culture and a factory of major league broadcasters in Amarillo, and it's not been around for a long time. Sam Levitt, me, Stefan in the future. Zach Goodman will be up in the big leagues at some point. This is a really good facility and a great group to work under. And they really made us feel like major league announcers from the jump. And then once I started getting that confidence after year two, our agent calls us and says, "Hey, the Athletics, they did a search for like the 10 top minor league announcers, and both of you were on the list." We interviewed. The interviews went really, really well. And we were both told that we were going to be finalists. I'm still told to this day that Stefan was the runner-up for the job, even though he didn't audition, because they knew they were either going to take one of us or none of us, and they didn't want to fly both of us out to have one of our hearts be broken. And I was just a better fit with Dallas. 9 times out of 10, Stephen Carey would have gotten that job with a more buttoned-up analyst. I just happen to have, this really colorful psychopath named Dallas Gray next to me. And I get to stay measured. We get to have fun. So it worked out in my favor. And, once I auditioned in the top 3, I said, I might as well get this thing, right? I don't know how many more chances, so I might as well go and get it. And I did the audition, and I tried to call the game as organically as possible. And I got the job. And here I am. So Amarillo had a very, very big hand in doing all of these things. Without Amarillo, I'd probably still be in the minors, to tell you the truth. But that's how the cookie crumbled for me, and I'm lucky that I only have to claim one minor league team in my minor league career, which is great.
It's very cool to see the dynamic, right? And especially for someone like Dallas that's so special to that baseball community. And, when you think about recent A's moments, obviously, his performances are right in the middle of that. When you first started looking at that job, what were your impressions of the A's? Like, what were your A's memories growing up? I'll tell you one of mine because I had it next to me. Obviously, growing up, around here, like John Lester was like a idol, especially for someone that grew up, pitching as a left-handed pitcher. And so that trade deadline in 14 when the Red Sox traded him to Oakland and they get Cespedes back and Johnny Gomes goes with them. I remember going once they made the playoffs. I'm like, all right, I gotta support my guy. So I found like the A's playoff stuff that year. Like I have like still like the playoff hat from that 2014 year. But what was funny is the playoff merch that year. I don't remember if you know this, but across like they have like the mantra every year on the playoff sweatshirts. That one was always October. And I always thought it was funny to have that A's one afterwards because they unfortunately lost, an incredible game against the Royals in the wild card game. But that game took place on September 30th of 2014. So now I have the sweatshirt that doesn't even have anything to do with October. And I would wear it in middle school. And people would ask me, like, all right, first of all, you're wearing that. They lost in September. Number two, it's January. It's not October. I can actually show you a calendar. So that's the A's memories that I think about. What were, the A's memories that you thought about when you were first going to get this job?
I gave what I like to say is I delivered a master class on how not to interview with prospective employers. They said, "What is your familiarity with the A's?" I said, "Almost none." I was brutally honest. I said, I'm an East Coast guy. I grew up a Braves fan with my dad being there. The A's weren't, a team that I was really consuming at all. I said I knew about Donaldson, I knew about Moneyball, I knew about the historic teams that came about. That big time 2002 team with the A's. Like top to bottom, the A's are a team that have constantly been doubted. I knew about the swinging A's in the early 70s, the three-peat. I mean, how could you not? Reggie Jackson. But when it came to the day-to-day stuff, I was learning pretty much on the fly last year about the club. And now I've become a bit of a fan of their history. I did a lot of reading this offseason. In fact, one of them, Ken Korak's book, Holy Toledo, Lessons from Bill King, Renaissance Man of the Mic. You can get that now on Amazon. Shameless plug. Just trying to help out my buddy.
No, Ken's the man.
Great
Absolutely.
piece of literature. To know about the A's now is great. I think also one of my big strengths was the fact that even though I didn't know, we were in a transitional period where I think even though we do embrace our history with the A's, we are very excited about what the future looks like. the Lawrence Butlers, the Brent Rookers, the stuff like that. So I knew kind of the almost immediate past, the last year or two beforehand. I knew they had a horrible season the year before I arrived. Just 10 wins more than the 2024 White Sox, which is astounding. And then they had a really good year last year. So I'm not going to lie and say I knew a bunch about the team, but hopefully the fan base in Oakland and in Sacramento and eventually Vegas looks at me and at least can look at me and say, he at least sounds like he knows what he's talking about. But I had a lot of help behind the scenes, and I did a lot of work and research to make sure that they knew that I cared about their organization and their club and their city, wherever it was. Because I do. I care about all those people. I care about all the people that got to put on the uniform and everybody on the staff. Because if I didn't bring my best and I didn't have an understanding of the team's history, then it showed that I didn't care. And I absolutely care about this club. And I never thought that I would find myself being a fan of the color green as much as I have been. But now I love it. I love every second of it, Tim.
Does it work on you? I know Carriers are very fashionable people. Again, nobody else is wearing suits on the Cape. Does green work on you yet?
I don't know. I don't. I we'll have to see. I'm gonna wear a seafoam suit today with a green tie. I told somebody I said either I'm going to a prom stag or I'm the 41st pick in this year's NBA draft. Like that's what it's going to look like. Um, I don't know who would pick me, but maybe the Kings will pick me. The purple's a great color too, but no, green looks okay on me. I'm usually more of like a neutral, like black, white, beige. It just really matches my personality, full of life and color and vibrance.
Oh my
So
God. What's fun about telling the story of this team? Again, I think there's a lot of people that are now starting to find the characters of, who doesn't like watching Mason Miller blaze fastballs past people, who doesn't like watching the show that Lawrence Butler is, and so great to see him get paid. What's special about telling the story of this current iteration of the A's?
I think it starts from the top, right? I think David Forst and Mark Kotze have put together a great team on the field, an inexpensive team on the field, and they bought in, right? The cohesion, you can see it, right? Brent Rooker, a 39 homer guy last year, batted in the 290s. I mean, somebody who is rags to riches quite literally in his career, signing a very team-friendly deal. Kotze getting extended, then Lawrence Butler signing a very team-friendly deal for the upside that he possesses. Everybody wants to be here. It's a family. And you see that come out in the games. Like they're playing for each other, even as early as yesterday. They were laying down bunts, they were moving runners over. Their cause, then what they want to do is they want to win baseball games. They want to prove a lot of people wrong. 500 is a goal for them. It's not a lofty goal, but it's not the only goal. They think that they can do even better. They think that this team could be a playoff team. And if you really see the personnel and you see our division, you start to say, wait a minute, that's not really that outlandish of an opinion to have. And I think that they can reach those goals. Obviously, if everybody stays healthy and they do the right things, this is a team that has that same kind of upward track like the Astros did 10 years ago, like the Baltimore Orioles did 5 years ago. They have that young group with a little bit of veteran leadership. They've started to bring in pitching. And top to bottom, it's better to call a team and broadcast a team and start with a team that's on their way up than already at the top. Because once you're already at the top, you go down. When you're on your way up, the sky's the limit. And that's what it's been for the A's so far. So I've enjoyed every second of calling games for this team, telling stories about this team, interacting with the guys who have been great to me. There's a new chapter being written right now in 2025, and we'll see how it goes.
We got a few rapid fire for you before we get you out of here for a very fun day ahead, but just the last two about, your current job. How, I don't know if magical is the right word. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. For your first game with them, to end on a walk-off and knowing that the A's are no, strangers to magic moments like that. Obviously, again, winning the 20 straight in the fashion that they did, that created, the icing on the cake for the Moneyball story. You kind of got your own version of that last year.
It's so funny because we had a lot of walk-offs in Amarillo the year before, and I just couldn't really master it the right way like my brother could. So much so that he'd say to me, "You really think that shit's gonna get you to the big leagues? Really, bud? Get better, please." So
I
I'm
know there was
sitting
the one
here.
voice crack one, but we moved past that.
Well, there's a few more than one. You can look in the lost archives and find them. But I didn't voice crack on my first one. I was better, but it was really special, and it gave me kind of the confidence to propel me forward, saying, the most exciting moment in any point in any baseball game is a walk-off hit, whether it's a home run or not. And if I can do that, and I pieced together a game my first day, and I was receiving positive feedback, I could have the rest of the season. It's so funny because I think I had 5 or 6 walk-off calls because I did most of the home games last year. And then I do one TV game this spring, and what do you know? It's a walk-off. So, I've definitely had my reps in, but I love it, and I think our fans have really resonated with how I call a game. As you know, with me and with Stefan, with my father Chip, our calling cards are the big plays, and I think that those are the most important to nail. And once you do that, um, the rest is secondary. The rest kind of falls into place. So once I was able to have, Lawrence Butler's walk-off single the other way, or JJ Bleday's walk-off home run against the Blue Jays on my mom's birthday on June 7th, JJ Bleday, from a pair of Seth Brown walk-offs to a Shea Langoliers walk-off, like we had all of them. We had, all the stops were made, and the right word is magical. I feel really blessed. Those opportunities presented themselves, and I got the chance to try and meet the moment. I think by and large, I was able to do so, and hopefully, many more of those moments will present themselves in 2025 at Sutter Health Park, where maybe the A's are going to win by 20 every single game. That would be my hope. So I don't have to be heart beating out of my chest, but I'll be ready when that moment comes this time around.
What's important to you in your process when you get ready for a game? I know, again, today's a big one at the time of recording, getting ready for the home opener, but what's important for you, getting there, doing your book, talking to the players, like what's important to you in your process as you get ready to call a game?
Just making sure my hair stays put with the gel that I use. No, I think preparation is key, but over prepping is the worst thing on the planet. I think that young broadcasters all the time decide, well, I got to prep everything. I got to have this whole encyclopedia of all of these things. You don't get to use all of it, especially on TV. You've got a free flowing conversation with your color analyst who has loads of prep themselves. I'd rather have a game where it's some of my best games are somewhere I've hardly, if not at all, prepped, and nobody knows because I'm utilizing and leaning on the actual star of the show, um, which is the analyst on TV. Now I'm doing about 45 radio games now this year, so prep is important for both sides. Don't get me wrong, but the more prep that you do, great, but it takes away from time outside of the stadium, which is your true life, right? You could be going and getting a coffee, or you could be going on a date, or you could be, having a nice lunch with a coworker, whatever it is. You're going on a bike ride, getting exercise. Instead, you're in your little scorebook writing in your highlighters and color coding everything. And for what? To use 20% of it? That to me, I would rather um, prep the stuff that I know is incredibly important, like pitch arsenal, stuff like that, some split information if anybody's on hitting streaks, and then maybe some major storylines around the league. But you also have your technology around you. I don't carry any technology with me. I don't have a laptop in the booth. I don't do it because I don't want to distract my viewpoint of the field. Once you start looking at all these devices, you're missing things. Um, and that was something that I was taught from a really young age from my dad and from all of the other great broadcasters that I was exposed to. So, before the game is really important. I think another thing too is when you're talking to these players, I don't think I've asked them a baseball question since being here. And I know that sounds crazy, but you're a member of the media. You know how it is for your job. It is more important because you need it, right? It's part of what. But a lot of the times, sometimes writers and broadcasters they go up and they ask these guys about things they've probably already answered 3 or 4 times. I'd rather ask them how their day's going, how their round of golf went, how their little boy's doing. And what happens is that naturally builds a chemistry and rapport that they start offering up information to me without asking, right? And I remember last year with JJ Bleday, we were talking about something completely out of the, something totally typical, like the day, or he likes Italian food or something like that. And then he starts going about his off-season workout progression, how he changed everything up. And it was a natural flowing conversation. And then we were talking on the tarmac on my only road trip, and he was asking me about my job. So I think treating these guys as human beings is incredibly important as well. Once you realize that even though they can throw a ball 100 miles an hour, or are able to do things that probably are inhuman, like hit a Yon fastball or whatever, and you realize they bring a specific skill set to the table, and you do as well. Um, but at the end of the day, they still go home. They still have kids, wives, problems of their own. I think they relate to you a little bit more. And I challenge young broadcasters to realize, yeah, these guys are great. They can be flashy. They can be wonderful. But a lot of them don't like to be glorified. They just want to be treated like human beings and have the space for their own. And once you give it to them, I think you earn a level of respect from them that sometimes it takes a lot longer to get if you do it the other way.
So excited to see what this year has for you on the air, and watch out to the single population around the Sacramento area, man.
Oh, I look like a 12-year-old boy. Look at my wrestling T-shirt. I don't know if they wanna hang out with a guy who wears wrestling T-shirts, but
Well, that's podcast attire. I don't know. Maybe the seafoam suit comes back out if we get to a date number three with somebody.
it's so funny. I got a little seafoam binder here. It's gonna look a little like this. I don't know
Okay.
if it accents my look yet or not, but
We're excited to
um,
see. We'll be excited to see the pictures. Rapid fire before we get you out of here.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I'm getting you in trouble if the answer is not Moneyball, but favorite baseball movie.
Moneyball is great, but favorite baseball movie, Summer Catch.
Yeah,
It's a
I
really
wonder
good
why.
it's a really good bad baseball movie. Like he meets the girl. Who was the love interest there? It was Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah.
and was it
The name is
Jessica Biel?
yes, yes.
And they meet, right? They meet at like the restaurant or something, and then like 15 minutes later in the movie, they're in love. I think I timed it.
Yeah.
It's like they meet, and then like 15 minutes later, they're in love with each other. Um, I I'm not going to say on the Cape magical things can't happen. I'm not going to say even on the Cape that might or might not have happened to me. But I am saying that I related to that movie. Sure, I don't think the Rotten Tomatoes score was the highest in the world, but it's a really good movie and reminds me of the times that I had on the Cape as well.
I still like to think that Emmys would have been won left and right if there was a if Love Island had taken place on the Cape in 2021. And I don't know, maybe they're casting you and your brother again. I know there's modeling in the family, and it's all about the faces with the carries. Maybe that's the run through is if Summer Catch 2 ever happens, we have a carry loaded.
Well, did I ever tell you the story about that?
No.
First year in Amarillo, we got contacted by like a Hollywood casting person. I was like, this has to be a bot or whatever. And she said, hey, I noticed your profiles. I noticed what you do. You guys would be perfect fit for, we're doing Love Island for twins.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, we would like to expedite your casting process if you decide to fly out. We were in the middle of the season. And we considered it for a second, but we were like, this is a little weird, like I don't know how this is gonna help with baseball. But I think it turned out to be like Dated and Related or one of those shows. But Stefan and I could have been on a twin dating show, which I don't necessarily know, like if we ended up getting married and having children, if I wanted my children to be brother cousins or sister cousins. But it would have been a funny story to tell, that's for sure.
I still there's a movie or TV screen for one of you at some point down the road, and I still very much maintain that. I know you haven't traveled a ton with the A's, but whether it was Amarillo or I don't know, I guess we can count the 40-minute rides to Orleans as travel
Right.
stories. Do you have a favorite baseball travel story?
Yes, I do, and it's about a former Red Sox. Thank you for telling me. So we're on a 13-hour bus ride to Corpus Christi. Um, and we had a historically good team in Amarillo my first year. I mean, you think of major leaguers: we had Dominic Fletcher, Dominic Canzone, Corbin Carroll, Brandon Pfaadt, Slade Ciccone, Bryce Jarvis, Dre Jameson, Blaze Alexander. We had all of those guys. And there was a guy who worked in a carpentry union, was playing independent ball, and the Diamondbacks signed for a plane ticket and a jersey. Former Boston Red Sox named Cam Boozer. You remember Cam Boozer?
I do.
Good old Cam Boozer. What a great guy he was. And I'm pretty sure he was being facetious when he said this, but we're pulling up to the hotel in the Corpus Christi Bay, and the water, is a little murky or whatever. And he's looking out, and he's half awake, half asleep. And he looks out. He says, "You guys wonder if there's any fish there in the ocean, right?" Well, the row in front of him is the recently extended Brandon Pfaadt. And Pfaadt's from Louisville, Kentucky, fishing boy, Southern boy, whatever. He turns around and says, "Booze, it's a ocean. Of course there are fish in there." And I just sit and I think about just the interactions of how these guys just understood each other. And one of the things that was so great about that experience in the minors is the how close proximity you had with the players. I still maintain a relationship with a lot of those guys. I see them at their ballparks. Like I got to catch up with Corbin Carroll a lot. You know, One of my favorite stories of when he signed his extension, we were on the rooftop at Salt River Fields. He busts through the door, his family there, his whatever, and we're kind of right in front of him. Remember, we didn't have super like that great of a relationship with Corbin. Not that it was bad. It's just he did his own thing. We did our own thing. First thing he does is he comes right up to me and Steph, gives us a big hug and says, "Thanks for representing me as well as you did in Amarillo." And that type of stuff means a lot because then that means, to the big people, you really did something for them. And I still maintain that Corbin Carroll is my favorite player in the game. He's probably my favorite person that I have met in the game. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer already. Yes, I sip the Kool-Aid. I don't care. This is a very tight-knit community, and there's a lot of stories still to be told and a lot of great personalities. But so happy for Cam Boozer that he made it to the big leagues. So happy for Brandon Pfaadt for signing that extension. He deserves it. And so happy to be just a little tiny part of their stories along the way.
I was going to ask for a baseball hot take at the end of this, but I guess the Corbin Carroll one certainly suffices.
Oh, cool. I'll give you a baseball hot take. That's fine. Does it
Well,
have to be with the A's? I can
no,
do one A's, one not A's.
no, of course not. This is your segment, sir.
The A's will make the playoffs this year. That's my baseball hot take. I think that there's growing belief across the country that this A's team can do stuff if they stay healthy. With the prospects they have, Nick Kurtz is not far away. Colby Thomas, who was on the Cape when we were there with Bourne, is not far away. Our pitching depth is really good. It's the best it's been in the last 3 or 4 years. Mark Kotsay is front runner for American League Manager of the Year, I believe. And I think that this is a really, really solid team. Another hot take during the off season, I think the Dodgers are going to get another Japanese player in the off season. I think Munetaka Murakami, who's that big time third baseman DH for Tokyo Yakult Swallows, the guy who's like got 270 homers already in the NPB at 25 years old, will be a Los Angeles Dodger because that will be a position of need after this year. And then they will just completely keep printing money. The Japan will just bleed Dodger blue at this point. They already do, but it's going to be even more than that. So those are my two hot takes. And, my perfectly normal take is Chris Caray is a very happy and blessed man and very lucky to be friends with Tim Crowley and to get to take some time with a buddy that I haven't seen in a very long time. And I feel a lot of regret about it.
How lucky am I? And again, that's going to come to an end soon, very soon. Well, the last two quickly. Rapid fire in the biggest sense of the word. Pre-game music. Is it still Ava Max for you? I don't think of her without thinking of you now.
I don't think of her without thinking of her all the time in my dreams when I wake up. No, my celebrity crush. Yeah, I still listen to her a little bit. I still listen to a little bit of female pop. I'm back kind of on the EDM wave now.
Okay.
I like a little bit of punk pop too, like some like metalish stuff. But I listen to a lot of sad music. But no, I think Ava is still in the rotation. She still will be forever in the rotation, and I will always have a very big place in my heart for her, even though she'll never notice.
I know we think about whatever we're going to clip for social cuts throughout the course of these episodes. Maybe that's the one as we finally, play to her and see if we can finally make the match happen.
Every single year at Halloween, she always tweets out, "What should I be for Halloween this year? Like, what should I go as for Halloween?" I quote the tweet every year and I say, "My girlfriend," and it never gets any traction ever.
Is this the year? Is this the year? I'm excited to see.
God, I hope so.
You've been blessed with so many great partners. Obviously, your brother. I know how much Stefan means to you, and what an incredible guy and broadcaster he is. Your dad's been great when you've gotten to work with him. Dallas and Jenny also do an incredible job alongside you as well. Do you have a dream broadcast partner you haven't worked with yet? I promise the last one.
I think my dream is to work with my brother again. I think that that would be really special. I think that's something that major league teams should capitalize on. We are the only identical twin broadcasters. And then the fourth generation legacy thing is really, really great. But I fear that if I work with him again, he's just going to overshadow me like he's done in every other aspect of our lives. So somebody like Steve Stone is really cool to me. FP Santangelo Sr. is really great, super fun guy. He and I align on a lot in a lot of ways. Working with my dad again would be great, but I really kind of get to live the dream right now, working with Dallas Braden. I didn't know much about him other than the fact that he's this big time personality, but he's really taken me under his wing, and I think Dallas Braden's a national guy. If he ever decides to get back in the saddle that way, but he's so good at everything that he does. Everything he touches turns to gold. So getting to learn under him is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And you know what? There are a few guys right now with the A's. Like I'd love to work with Corbin Carroll if Corbin decided to broadcast. I'd love to work with JJ Bleday or Mason Miller, Brent Rooker. But that time is way down the road from now. So I'll stick with Dallas Braden and Stephen Carey being my answers. Lock it in.
I'm gonna say when you work with him again with your brother, I envy the producer that gets to see and edit the Dawn for Air segments with you, because I will never forget the day that I came to edit our post game show and found a 5 minute full blown fight on our camera that I got to watch behind closed doors. And we talked about the blooper reel, and I think I maybe used 5 seconds of the 5 minutes, but for those that have seen it, again, in a very small circle,
You got to link it. You got to show them how bad our moves are. Didn't we sing Frozen too?
You did, alongside Eric Brown, who became a first round pick for the Brewers.
Oh,
Again, the
EJ.
personalities were endless.
Oh my God. I mean, we had. I mean, look at Ben Rice now. Look where
Yeah,
he is. I mean, it's amazing. Paul Skeens was in that league with Wareham. Remember, he was at DH and he wasn't hitting very well either. That Paul Skeens is totally different than the Paul Skeens now.
totally.
So it was a great place. It was a great opportunity, and I'm very grateful for the time there. Obviously, for my career, but I got to meet people like you that have become lifelong friends. So. Um, Getting to do this, Timmy, I can't tell you how talented and wonderful you are, and everything that you seem to do seems to get better and better. And for everybody that's watching and listening and consuming what this man does, it's only going to get better from here. And really, you're lucky. You're lucky to have a guy like this putting out content for you because it's only a matter of time until he's a big time national guy. And he's not going to be interviewing these low profile guys like me anymore. He's going to be doing all the big time celebrities, and I couldn't be happier for you.
You know how much I appreciate you and how proud I am of everything you've put together. I know that our reunion is going to be one for the ages soon. For now, I can't wait to see what the season has for you on the air and everything that the Athletics put together in this new chapter of the team. Again, Chris Caray, one of the voices of the A's. Thank you so much for stopping by, my friend, and we'll get to watch you all season long.
Thank you, Timmy. I love you, buddy. See you
Love
soon.
love you too, brother. Thanks so much to Chris Caray for stopping by on episode 2 of Connect the Game. So excited to see what this season has for him and the rest of the broadcast crew out with the A's, and Jenny Cavanaugh and Dallas Braden should be one of the fun teams to watch with a lot of young talent this season. All right, for those in the Red Sox community, let's talk about this Rafael Devers situation. It is understandable to have concerns when you watch a franchise player who's been one of the best bats in baseball for a number of years now start the season at the time of this recording going over 19 with 15 strikeouts. It's very unlike him. Obviously, this entire spring is surrounded around Devers, has been all about Devers, and how does he adjust to the DH situation? How does he feel about the organization? How does he feel about Alex Bregman coming in? Obviously, he's voiced his opinions, the front office has voiced theirs, and now here we are, which still, in my opinion, the route to go with Bregman at third. We're already seeing how good the defense is. Don't let that weird play when he fell on his face in Baltimore's opening day change the fact that he's already been such a great defensive upgrade for this team. You saw it all weekend long in Texas, and you're going to continue to see it throughout the course of the year. But with Devers particularly at the plate, I know Alex Cora talked about it from opening night on, just seems behind on the fastball. Is there a reason to be worried? How does he get over this? This isn't the first time that a Red Sox DH has had a hard start to the season. Again, the Devers situation, it's a little bit different. It's his first time doing this in a full-time role. But people may forget that even David Ortiz had some struggles to start seasons. Those 2009 and 2010 seasons are the ones that I really want to look at because he still found a way to figure it out. Maybe not as much as in '09, but still a respectable season in the power department. I know his batting average was down. He had no PS under 800 in that season. But it was really April that started to scare people. And there were talks around Boston at that time saying, oh, is this the start of the end of this with Ortiz? It's been an incredible run. He gave the city two rings in '04 and '07, countless memories. But is this kind of the start of the decline for a player in his mid 30s? Didn't hit a home run until May that season. Only had one home run in April in 2010. He started to have months later in those seasons that he started to put it together. And sometimes with great players, you have to have that trust. We can take a look at the numbers and kind of start to compare them as we look at Ortiz in 2009 and 2010 and how the splits add up throughout the months of those seasons. There's a fine line to walk with this with Devers because I know it doesn't seem to be, thankfully, for the sake of intelligent baseball conversation, thoughts of, does he need to not be playing? Does he need to be on the bench? Does he need this? Does he need that? No, he needs the at bats, and that's only going to continue because, again, is it the entire explanation? No. But the reality is that he only had 15 plate appearances, 14 at bats during spring training. Yeah, he had that time in the backfield. He hit home runs off Walker Buehler, but you need those game at bats. And again, this was an offseason that was so critical for him just to get healthy, get right. Obviously, the shoulder ailments from last year caused a big part of the story for him entering the offseason, even before this Bregman situation came to fruition when he officially signed with the Red Sox. But this is the comparison I hope to watch. And I know that Ortiz was down talking to him at Fort Myers throughout the course of spring training. Ian Brown from MLB.com the other night had asked him in the post-game scrum, have you talked to guys like JD Martinez? Again, another incredibly successful DH for the Red Sox. Have you talked to Ortiz? At the time, Devers said no, but I should call them. That is really more the conversation, I think, at this point. If Ortiz and Devers are going to have in-season conversations about this, it's not how do you adjust to the DH routine? How do you get used to not playing the field? How do you get your adjustments down during the game? Is it in the cage? Is it on the iPad? Is it kind of talking through things in the dugout? My thing, I think, at this point more is when you start to get into this mental headspace of, oh, it's been a tough start to the season. The strikeouts are there. I'm not producing, with the game on the line. I'm not getting the big hit. But that also goes beyond Rafael Devers. That's been really the top four of this Red Sox lineup that continues to leave runners on base game after game to start this season. I think the conversation that could help Rafael Devers from the David Ortiz standpoint is how do you get out of an early season slump like this? How do you find a way to show up when the noise is as loud as it is in Boston? Because it really was loud back then with Ortiz as well. Obviously, I think really the moment that came to a head back then was that game at Toronto years ago where Terry Francona pinch hits for him, brings Mike Lowell up. They kind of platooned for a little bit, and Ortiz was obviously frustrated. Does Alex Cora really want to walk that line with Devers? I know, again, for Ortiz, it worked out, and that's kind of the point of this conversation, the argument that I wanted to bring. But there's still a fine line of you already have some relations with a star that haven't been great in conversations the last few months. Is that really where you want to go, where you start platooning and pinch hitting? Not that there's a lineup situation that makes sense in that sense for the Red Sox, but that's the conversation I think that should be had if there's an Ortiz-Devers conversation during the season. So how do you get out of this early stretch where you just can't find the power? For Devers, it's still trying to find contact and just put the ball in play a little bit more. But that's where I think David Ortiz can have the biggest thing. Because 2010, he really found a way to snap out of it like that once he really found his groove later in the spring. Won the home run derby in 2010, was an all-star in 2010, put up great numbers. He still hit 28 home runs in that 2009 year where he didn't hit a home run until May. We all think that Rafael Devers is capable of still putting up 30 home runs this year when he figures it out, right? Because that's what David Ortiz found a way to do twice. And if everyone wants to see, well, if Devers in this situation as the new DH can kind of be the next David Ortiz, no one's saying to that level, right? But Devers has been an incredibly productive player for the Red Sox. And I know the comps between the two of the players, because of the position, because of the power, because of the clutch hits they've had, obviously come up to a certain extent. Obviously, Ortiz is still in a class by himself. Let's make that very clear in the height of Red Sox designated hitters. JD Martinez was obviously incredibly productive too and won a ring. But obviously, when it comes to how the position can be dominated at the fullest extent, that's where David Ortiz comes in. That's what I want to see the next few weeks is how does Devers start to find that curve? Because I still feel, even though it seems bleak right now and the at-bats almost seem at times, I don't want to say helpless, but it just feels like an inevitable outcome. There's going to be a month, whether it's May or June, that Rafael Devers is going to totally break out of this, and it could just take one swing. David Ortiz already shown it can be done. Again, he's a different player. He's a special player. But something tells me that there's a big month ahead in either May or June for Rafael Devers. The numbers showed it for David Ortiz that it can be done in a Red Sox uniform. Let's see what it means for Rafael Devers in the coming weeks. That'll do it for episode 2 of Connect the Game. Should be a very fun week to go into next week. The Red Sox have their home opener as you watch this tomorrow on April 4th against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Final Four is this weekend. We're going to have some fun basketball guests as well in the next few weeks. And also get to talk about some television style. And on the baseball side, Apple TV, we're going to talk about that World Series 3-part docuseries they put out between the Dodgers and the Yankees, and especially around Boston, the one that everyone's been waiting for. The Clubhouse from Netflix comes out on April 8th, the 8-part series chronicling the 2024 Red Sox season, an 81 and 81 season. But from what we've seen so far in the trailers and the little bit that they showed fans during Fenway Fest back in January, this should be a very fun watch. Get a new side of the MLB background that we don't get to see as much. The fans don't get to see as much. Obviously, in the media, sometimes we do. But it should be a really fun watch, and we're going to talk plenty about that in the coming weeks as well. So episode 3 coming up next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to episode 2. For our guest, Chris Caray, I'm Tim Crowley. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next week.